Good evening once again, and welcome to the Literary Hour. Today we'll be discussing Orature and its role in national development in Liberia. And with me, as always, is my co-host, Dr. Moses Nangwe. Welcome,
Why are you
Professor
leaving the
Nangwe.
K? You there?
K. Moses
What?
Nangwe. Welcome, Prof.
Hey.
Nangwe. Yes, welcome. So,
Yeah.
whether it starts with riddle or it starts with once upon a time, Ursula Le Guin says that there have been great societies that have never used the wheel, but there have never been great societies that don't have stories. So in our quest for self and in our quest for community, we ask, where do we belong? And orature is just literature by mouth. And so today we're going to discuss it. We're going to place it in Liberia's national development, and we ask you to join us on this journey. So, Prof, we're here again.
Yeah. It's always a thrill to look forward to this day in the week, Friday.
Friday.
I'm glad to be here.
So,
Forward to this day in the week, Friday.
Friday.
I'm glad.
Sorry. So, Prof, maybe we should talk a little bit about the history before we start talking about, before we jump into the nitty gritty. What do you think?
Yeah, I think people need to get some context to what orature is. You started talking about it, which is good. The key thing to remember, just as you said earlier, is that of literature by mouth.
Yes.
But another part is that when we think about orature, we think about folklore. And folklore, as we need to know, is the container or the crucible of pre-literate people's history, their philosophy, their religion, and every other marker that shines light on their identity.
Yes.
Their values and all those are packed in folklore. You, when you talk about legends, which are folk stories that have a kernel of history in them. When you talk about myths, you talk about an explanation of what the people have thought about how they came into being, how human beings came into being. When you talk about folk tales, you talk about people engaged in actions of improbable heights. And what
Yes.
you talk about parables, you talk about stories with meaning, you talk about proverbs, you talk about assertions that have deeper meanings. So you see what I'm talking about. It's folklore is the crucible. Folklore is the container in which we, even if you get into legend, you can find some little kernels of history with regard to the path that people travel either from the hinterland to the coast, or how they travel from the coast to the hinterland, all those. So it is the pre-literate people's own way of formulating stories that have been able to help them explain their identity, explain the markers that make them individuals, that make them persons as they are.
And Prof, I was discussing with a friend about the about orature, and she brought up that, oh yeah, we used to tell stories and this, and a lot of times when you're discussing orature, people think that, oh, this is old fashioned. It belongs
Mm-hmm.
to tradition way back.
Even it's
But
frivolous, they will say. If
if
they say
you
it's
look at,
frivolous. Go
yeah,
ahead.
but if you look at the history of orature, you know, I mean, orature is not just something of the African continent. I mean, we had Beowulf, we had
Yes. The great English.
Arthur, we have Robin Hood in the in the English language or in the English society. And if you look at Shakespeare, Shakespeare took some of those legends and myths and he wove them
Yeah.
into his I mean, like Macbeth, right? He has witches in
Yes,
Macbeth,
witches, ghosts,
you
and all
know?
that.
Yeah. And then he would have riddles in some of his plays.
Yes.
So, and then when you come to Native American, they have these creation myths
Yeah.
how they came to be. And I mean, we studied. You taught me some. We studied American U.S. Literature, and we know Mark Twain. You know, we learned about Paul Henry, Paul Bunyan. You
Paul
know,
Boyan, Johnny
Bunyan. You know,
Appleseed.
Johnny Appleseed. You know, things that has become part of the American
Yeah.
culture per se,
Yeah. Yeah.
so it's not that when we say orature or proverbs or parable, people be, oh, that's for the now we are literate. That doesn't mean anything. We said the griots brought those things with them, and we have also brought our parables, our stories and things with us across the ocean on this side, so I mean, my kids love listening to folk tales and things. So when we talk about these things, we're talking about encapsulated wisdom
Yeah.
that is
Encapsulated
endemic
with it. Yeah.
to a country.
Yeah.
That when you hear somebody say, "Oh, when chicken white is white,"
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
Liberian.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
Liberian. When I went back home, and this may be maybe migration, because like we say, these things migrate.
Yeah.
I was there for July 26th, 2 years ago. And I was asking the guy who was driving me, and I said, "Oh, what are you going to do for July 26th? Is it going to be good?" And he said, "If the Christmas is going to be good, you will know it by the eve." But I've never heard that before. So I'm thinking this is a saying that came with them,
Yeah.
when they migrated and came back, because growing up in Liberia, I never heard that if it's going to be good, you're gonna know it by the eve. I didn't know that, but then when he said that, I'm hearing it a lot from other
Yeah.
people. So I'm saying that that's something that came back. I don't think it was endemic to Liberia. But what do you say when people say, "Oh, this is just tradition"? Get rid of these things and let's. What do you say to that?
So that is all the reason why, Jackie, that conversations of this nature that we are having are very much important. You may not blame such people who would relegate something about folklore to so far into antiquity that we cannot bring them back.
Yes.
You see, before the whole world got so complex with technology and all those things there, our people had only to commune with nature. They were able to sit around with fewer distractions to be able to distill important things about life from these stories, from these statements, and what have you. So, folklore is more like the foundation of human creativity. Folklore is the foundation of human creativity, so that you were talking about Shakespeare and several other people. And the reality is that because folklore has been very rich, modern writers have even every now and then been able to extract some of those ideas and mix them up as part of the ingredients to be able to tell a good story. How many times have people not told the Cinderella story over and over again? How many times have they not told stories about Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs? You know, these are stories. In fact, way back, I did learn a story about how how the sea became salty and all that. That is not an African story, but it is part of the plethora of stories, of wise sayings, and all those things that are found in the. So the short of the long is that sometimes it is wise, if you do not know something, to just keep your mouth shut. But some people, even if they don't know a whole lot about certain concepts or certain bodies of ideas, they want to pontificate on them. And that's where you see the naivety of such people. So actually, you know, I will feel sorry for those who think that folklore is something to be simply relegated to remote antiquity.
And you can also see that as we discuss it, if you put I mean, we can go through the different types of folklore. Maybe we should start with, I don't know, maybe we should start with riddles,
Yeah,
I
riddles.
mean, yeah, with riddles, right? It's a question, but like we say, it has an answer to something of nature,
Yeah, it's
something of nature,
it's
Yeah.
more of verbal. Is part of the verbal gymnastics of uh, of the old people. Yes, you know, this is where critical thinking is developed. This
Yes.
is where critical thinking is developed.
Yeah.
Uh, so it may be a question, it may be a little story, and then of course it has a question at the end. Uh, we were talking about that the last time, and
Yeah.
we talked about Oedipus the
The most
king.
ancient,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
most ancient.
Oedipus the king, the Greek play. You know, the Sphinx will
Yes.
come into the town to the Thebans, and yes, and then ask what in the morning walks on four legs, at
And
noon
then,
walks on two legs,
yes,
and in the evening walks on three legs. Of
yes,
course, legs have to be seen in the context of a metaphor, though, because if a child is crawling, you know that the child is crawling with the knees and the hands. So in that riddle, all those are seen as legs. You know, so what in
yeah,
the evening, what in the morning walks on four legs, at noon two, and in the evening three. You see, so
yeah,
again, that is a riddle.
yeah. And they said that that riddle, the Sphinx would not let you enter Thebes
Uh-huh.
unless you would answer, and
Yeah.
nobody got the answer. And then there was
Uh-huh.
a second one, which was there were two sisters,
Uh-huh.
and the first gave birth to the second, and the second gave birth to the first,
Uh-huh.
and that's night and day.
Yes.
Night and day, two sisters,
Can you just
you know,
imagine that?
and when I was in Liberia, the one that they had that was really funny was when they would say, as I was going to St. Ives, I met a man with 7 wives, and every wife had 7 cats, and every cat had kept 7 kittens. Kittens, cats, wives. How many were going to St. Ives?
Oh my.
And I was going. I met the guy. He was coming from St. Ives, but that was really difficult,
Yeah.
difficult to
Yes. Hmm.
yeah.
Like
And
like
there are all kinds, yeah.
yeah. And again, that's one way of our people try as much as possible to test the mental acuity of individuals, and play around them for a while, and then of course when you've known this set very well, you've known the answers for this set. Then, of course, others think about other sets to make sure that, so incrementally, your mind is expanded. And of course, you kind of make sure to pay attention to details. It helps you pay attention to details and all that kind of a thing. Yeah, riddles. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then one that is very endemic to African culture is Proverbs and Parables.
Mm-hmm. Riddles too do. Yeah.
Riddles.
Yeah. They're all there, depending on when you move from one village to the other, or move from one town to the other, or move from one region to the other, or move from one ethnic group to the other.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so I was reading a paper, and it said that, you remember how we were talking about music,
mm-hmm.
right? And I was saying that, before we used to have such patriotic music,
mm-hmm.
One-way ticket to Liberia,
mm-hmm.
Sweet Liberia, yeah. And now, not so much. And I was saying that, you can look at the evolution of a country through its music.
Yeah.
But you can also look at the evolution of a country through its proverbs and parables. Because if a country,
in fact, from the point of view of anthropology and even sociology and what have you, especially in the area of anthropology, those who wanted to know something about how an ethnic group evolved to the modern times, we want to listen to the legends of the ethnic group, listen to the myths of that ethnic group, and be able to glean kernels of history explaining how those people evolved from time to time. So those stories are, in short, the folklore is nothing to play with, because that becomes the context, that becomes the base from which you understand basically why certain things are done in that culture, or why certain things are rejected or avoided. That's where you talk about the taboos and all those. You remember taboos? All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So if we talk about things like parables, right? So we say parables are just elongated proverbs, right? They tell a story like the parable of
the thing about it is to call them elongated proverbs, sometimes there might be a hitch there, because proverb is just an assertion.
Yeah.
And a parable, of course, if you've grown into the tradition, if you've grown into the concept of being able to delineate a proverb and a parable, you can, out of sophisticated mind, be able to say that parables are elongations of proverbs. But we need to understand that a proverb is simply a wise saying. It's good to make that point, because in Liberia, for instance, when someone say our people have a parable, they say they are really talking about a proverb.
Yes.
They're not talking about a proverb is a statement, just a statement with deep meaning. That's all. And a parable is a story. You find many of those parables, for instance, in how Christ taught his people at the time.
Yeah, the parable of the sower in the sea, parable of the good Samaritan.
Yes.
That's true. Yeah. So Proverbs, like they were saying that if you're in a country where you see most of the Proverbs, they're talking about unity. Mm-hmm. They're talking about goodness. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's debatable, but they're saying that country, more than most, is a good country, because and that's what I'm saying. It's debatable, because I don't think so. But this guy did a study of Bhutan, and he said that the country, most of the parables talk about unity. So therefore, the country was a unified country. Like we say, it's debatable. You can have the best proverbs and still be a messed up
Of course,
country. Yeah.
I don't know whether you're talking about Steve Evans. Steve Evans did a lot of study on botanic culture, and that's the country where there's much talk about national gross happiness.
Yeah.
They have
Yeah.
they have a way of measuring. They have a chart where they measure how you can arrive at a conclusion that a country is good by measuring the national gross happiness, just like you talk about the gross product of a country. So it depends.
So Prof, let's talk about folk tales, and creation myth.
Mm-hmm.
So as we're talking about it, we know that the interesting thing is that in the Gullah people in South Carolina, right?
Mm-hmm.
They
Mm-hmm.
have a lot of folk tales about Anansi the spider.
Yeah.
And they said that it was brought over during
Yeah.
the people who
Yeah.
they turned into slaves came,
Mm-hmm.
that they brought those with them. So Anansi the spider has gotten a short shrift in all the stories. He's a trickster. If
Yeah.
in Ghanaian folk tales, he's the trickster and things like that. But perhaps for those who are watching with their kids, who have not told their kids about why spider has a small waist, do you want to tell us why spider has a small waist?
Well,
And why you're doing that, I'll be right back. Yeah.
Spider has been known as a very greedy animal in many of those stories. And there was famine in the land, and yet there happened to be some festivity in an adjacent spot. They themselves, Spider and his people, were having a little festivity in his place too, but he wanted to be in those two places because he wanted to eat a whole lot. So he spoke with some of his friends in both towns, and they said, but you can't be one place at the same time. He said, but you know very well, I have brains. You know very well I have brains, and I'm going to just stir something up. So there is a palm tree at the junction of both towns. So I'm going to get a twine, a rope, and all we do, I am going to tie the twine around my waist. And since we don't have clocks, we don't have watches and all that, I will not know when food is ready in this town or that town. So when I tie the rope around my waist, you, friend, you will have the other end in the town, and the other end will be in the other town. So which one will be ready the first? You will just pull the end of the twine that you have over there, and if it is on this side, the same thing will happen. He didn't even think, how about when all these towns are ready for the food at the same time? He didn't think about that. The greed had him. He couldn't care less. So he was by the palm tree, a kind of cat napping, waiting for the moment that one will be ready. Then he will run there, eat what he will eat, and then come back quickly. And then when the other one pulls him, he will go there. Oh my God. He was there whistling and, clapping his hands and, tapping his feet. Oh Lord, I'm going to eat a whole lot today. Oh Lord, I'm going to eat a whole lot today. Oh Lord, I'm going to eat a whole lot today. By 12 going to 1 o'clock, both towns had their food ready. And guess what was happening then? Town A began to pull the rope. Town B began to pull the rope. And it was getting too tight. And Spider was saying, yeah, I know, yeah, no, please, yes, no, my waist, my stomach was good, and then all of a sudden, the thing started tightening up, the rope started tightening up, and eventually, Spider's tongue hung out, the eyes bulged out of his sockets and all that. People, this thing I'm telling you, people were busy eating, and those who were, trying to invite him, they were doing whatever they would do, not knowing that Spider had given up the ghost. By the time the eating was done, by evening time, those who came from the other town and went to the other town, what have you, they found the corpse of Spider by the palm tree. That is why it is often said that if you immerse yourself in greed, greed is going to take you over and destroy you.
Yeah. So you see, it tells a story. And my favorite one is about the crows. I mean, I remember because we have crows outside, but they said that the crow used to be the most beautiful bird in the forest. Mm-hmm. He was just so beautiful, you know, and he would never pass a body of water that he wouldn't stop to just look at his face and say, "Oh, I'm so beautiful." So he was constantly looking at himself. So one day God gave him a very important letter to take to somebody on earth. And God said, you have to give this person this letter within an hour. Yes. And Beautiful Crow was bringing a letter, and he saw some water, and he stopped by the water and started to admire himself. And he kept admiring himself. He did take the message, but he took it late, you know. And so God said to him, because you've done this, among the birds, you will be the ugliest bird. And when you look at yourself in the water, you will always admire yourself. When you look at yourself, you will see that you're beautiful. But the people that see you will see you as ugly. And so that's why people don't like crows. They think crows are so ugly, you know. But I just remember, you know, one of the things about folk tales is that I don't think really you can capture it by reading a book. You know, I just remember sitting outside on the steps with my grandmother, you know, and she's telling us all these stories, you know, and that intimacy, that closeness, you know, I mean, I can almost hear her. And you know, what the book cannot give you is this personification. You know how when you're talking, you're like, Spider is saying, In the book, you're never going to hear that. You're never going to, as when your parents are telling you, or somebody's telling the story, they can mimic.
There's the drama of it all.
Yes, you can. You know, you can say, "Oh, the crow was saying, oh, look at me." But the book doesn't say that. So when I think of folk tales, I really do think of Orature. You know, I for some reason, whenever I think of it, I don't think of it as, I mean, I know there are books of folk tales. You know, I think A. Doris Bank Henry's, right, wrote a book of folk tales, like folk tales. But for some reason, for me, folk tales is always oral for me. You know?
The written forms kind of get to the point of telling us how far humanity has come. In other words, these were all orally created. And
Yes.
now that we have moved into a literate society,
Yes.
it's become important that they've been documented. And so if you have a reading session where someone is reading, then of course we expect that person to kind of put life into whatever they're reading,
Yes.
so that those things will come alive and what have you. Somebody, just before we go, somebody was talking about, he said, a parable is a story with a lesson. Of course, that is not peculiar only to parable. I wanted to make that point because actually parable falls under that broad heading of folk tales, and folk tales normally have the moral to those stories and what have you.
Yes.
So it is not just parable that has a moral to it or a lesson to it. I just wanted to make that point before we go on. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and even now, in the schools here, they always ask us to come and talk to the little kids, and they're always asking us to tell stories, folk tales,
Yes.
and it's easy to just be reading, but reading doesn't capture it. Sometimes you push the book aside. I used to tell my kids the story about the lady who said she wouldn't get married to anybody. She turned everybody down, remember?
Yes.
And this guy came and he was looking so nice.
Yes.
And then she said, "Oh, I want to marry him." So she
Yes.
got married, and as they're going,
Yes.
the snake come and say, "Just give me my skin."
I know.
And they're going again. And the bird says, "I want my eyes."
Yes.
And as they're going, every animal is thinking. And then by the time she looks at him, he's an ogre. And, and he's a devil, and she's like, "Oh my God." Because things are not always what they seem.
Yes.
But these stories are not just to entertain. These stories are to teach.
To teach.
They teach wisdom.
Yes.
They're not just to entertain. They're not stories like, I mean, they're not stories like, well, Cinderella is also one that teaches, not to treat people badly. So yes, they all have morals in them. A story that just, yeah. So we go on now to, we can talk about the parables and proverbs before we go into its role in national development. So my favorite proverb is, "Do not look where you slip or do not look where you fell, but where you slip." Where's yours? What's yours?
Do not know. What did he say? Do not look where you.
Do not look where you fell. Look where you slipped.
Yes. No. The thing about it, if you know many, then of course finding one is just too difficult for you in the process. But a proverb, a short one is like, when a tree falls, it leaves its trunk. When a tree falls, it leaves its trunk. Which is all about legacy. And that is why it is very much important for the things we say and the things we do. Some people will often say that, well, look, when I'm dead, I am done. That is not true. Whatever you do is going to leave behind you. Whatever you say will leave behind you. That is why there is another one which says that words are like palm kernel shells. They never rot. Words are like palm kernel shells. They never rot. And the cruel person will say, "Wimo takwe inison. Wimo takwe inison." So that is an admonition. That is an admonition. That is an advice to you. When you are with people, when you are among people in the community, even in your home, if you told your child that nothing will come out of that child, I don't care whether you all make peace later on, that child will never forget that particular statement. So watch out the words you offer to people. Watch out the words, even your worst enemy. You want to make sure that you don't say something that tomorrow you will regret. So too, I gave you right.
How about when you play with puppy, lick your mouth?
Oh yes, yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's the other one? When chicken vex, but it has no teeth. You know, I know that. That was a funny one. You know, oh, there's one. And through crawfish drink water.
Okay, that's again. That is connection power. That is connection power. Yes. That is network. That is networking. Isn't that
so? I mean, we could group these. So if you're thinking about the country like Liberia and you want to show the depend, you know, like you know, like you want to say, you know, when you like things fall apart, right? Mm-hmm. He had Proverbs and in every aspect there was Proverbs. Mm-hmm. But like, for example, you know, if we say, oh, people always talk bad about Liberia, right? Mm-hmm. And then we could end it with if the house don't sell you, the street will not buy you.
Yes.
You know, that's one. But but what I'm saying is okay. So is this a parable if you say when chicken white and white? Is that a parable?
No, that's a proverb. We said a wise saying that has deeper meaning.
Okay.
So the question is it a statement? If it is not a statement, then of course, because a story will even if it is short, it has characters, it has maybe little conflict and other kind of thing, and then like the spider story that we told, what was in the mind of Spider? Spider wanted to eat whatever he would eat, and of course, you know, he had friends and all that were prepared to haul the ends of the cord when it came time to eat. So when it is a statement, it's just more like a subject, verb, and object, or what have you. And if it is a story, if it is a proverb, I mean, if it is a parable, it's got to be a little, even if it is going to go for 2 or 3 or 4 more sentences, it will have to do that before it arrives at its end. So then you have to look at the, one has to look quickly at the basic elements of a short story, I mean, basic elements of a story. You know, the plot, the characters, you know, the conflict and all that kind of thing will come into the picture. See, but that is not in the case of a proverb.
Yeah, Anthony, do we have comments? Maybe we can read some comments and see if our audience, if they have comments and if they're following. My late older brother told us this Liberian folk at night way back in the 1960s. I think it's the spider story. Yeah, that's spider story.
This person is saying Liberian told us this Liberian folklore. No, folklore. The thing about it here,
folktale. It's a folktale.
Listen here. This is a container. This is a bottle. There's a bottle. In the bottle, I have what? I have my thumb drives. So consider each one of them as an element of folklore.
Folklore. Yeah.
So this will be maybe folktale. This will be a proverb. Yeah. This will be a parable. That's what it is. So the whole container is folklore.
Yeah, folklore. I mean, folktale is a part of folklore.
Yes. A myth is a part of what? It's a part of a folklore.
Sis Francis says she never heard the crow story. Yeah, my grandmother told me that one about the ugly bird. Yeah, the inclusion. Yeah, once upon a time. Yeah, once upon a time.
No, that's that. Yes, once upon a time.
Oh, definitely. Let our audience can list their favorite proverbs, and then Anthony can put it on so we can read it. Please do. Please list your favorite proverb. Oh, Sis Francis, you should finish. So please list your proverbs and let us read it, and then we can discuss some of them. So
let me challenge this person, Francis Wilson. I shouldn't hear this thing about so many years I've been thinking about writing this book. You better begin writing the book right away. That's how you challenge
write this
yourself.
book.
So please, the next time I hear, let me hear something about you finish the first chapter. Okay.
Yeah, Anthony has some of Proverbs from the choir group.
Yeah,
Maybe we can list some. Leaning against the pillar of a house does not make one the owner. Yeah, that's one.
And again, this one is about impressionism. You know, showing off what you don't have and making it look like it's your own. That's part of it. There, yeah, leaning against the pillar of a house does not make one. The very good. That's impressionism right there.
A teary eye never loses the nose for company.
Yeah. So isn't that something really? When you are crying, don't you feel mucus coming down your nose?
Yeah.
In other words, things that are together are always together. Yes, you can't leave one part off. Yes, very good.
How about Earthworm says, if you got no eyes, let your conscience be your guide.
Now this is the thing about folklore, especially when it comes to even folk tales and what have you. With our people, they invest objects, they invest animals, they invest things with what? With human qualities. Yes. So that is one of the things you see here. Earthworm, we know what an earthworm is. Now they invest that with human language. If you've got no eyes, let your conscience be your guide. It's like while reading between lines. You must be able to read between lines. And if you cannot read between lines, then you have a problem. Yes.
Anthony, do we have some proverbs from our
audience as well? Yes.
Our audience. Do we have some from our audience?
Oh, he's coming again. Kingship thrives not on mere words. Yes. Yeah. Even the thing about if you say that you are a parent and you cannot take care of your children, then how dare you go on boasting that you have what? You have children. The same thing, if you say that this is my nephew or this is my niece or this is my first cousin or this is my second cousin, when last did you offer even a candy to that child? If you haven't done so, then of course there's a problem. We are related is not enough. You must be able to deliver something.
So, Prof, this is your proverb. Can you say in Crew or Gribble?
Which one?
The one that just came. Kingship knows no.
You said.
Okay, when when bad luck call your name, Ratty Banana will break your teeth. I know this one.
Again, that is
preordained.
Yeah, when bad luck. No, what I was about to say is that this is an example of a proverb as well, because this is just one statement. You know, when bad luck, that's a typical Liberian proverb there. When bad luck follow you.
Oh, Dr. Jabba Wesley is here. The child that wanders does not know its mother's grave. Yeah, that's one.
Yes, indeed.
So Prof, they have one like patient dog eat the fattest bone. Mm-hmm. I know that one, right? Oh, there's one that says if the rain did not fill the bucket, you think the dew will fill the bucket? So those one, you know, the baby that says his mother will not sleep, the baby himself will not sleep, you know. But what about this one that says, "I hold your foot"? Now, what is that? Is that just a saying?
Yeah, that just a saying is not is one of cultural statements of plea. That's all it is. It's not one of a proverb as such.
And my grandmother used to say, they can't stay long. How long John stay in the army? Who's John? And which army was he? I'm sorry. Who's John?
You say who's John?
Because you see, Prof, what I'm trying to get at is that proverbs can be a unifying force for national development. We know that. But proverbs can also be used to insult people, to throw like how is it? A flower was living before dog ear was cut. You
Yes.
know, that one is never said in good spirits. That's always said in throwing hints at somebody, don't you think?
But the thing about it, that is all the reason why we have to keep in mind that a lot of these things, a lot of these wise sayings, they don't have a monolithic type of usability. You know, it depends on who is saying whatever. Let us even go back to the proverb that Sister Wesley gave, which is a child who wanders a whole lot will never know. I think the mother's grave and that sort of a thing.
Yes.
This is more of an admonition. This is more of an advice. In other words, you have to keep focused and you have to keep to the home. If you are a wanderer, if you will not listen to people and all that, definitely there will be a disconnect between you and your family, a disconnect between your household, a disconnect with a lot of things, and therefore you might end up being what? A wanderer, aimless person as such. So the short of the long is that these proverbs and even the parables, they are intended for different occasions and different reasons and what have you. So it is, someone says, softly, softly catch monkey. You see that one there? In other words, patience. Patience is important. You see?
Yeah.
So, in other words, the folklore provides a bit of history. The folklore provides a bit of philosophy. Philosophy, in other words, life principles. So, whatever it is, they may be used for good or for bad.
Yeah. So my question now is how do we take this folklore, this
Mm-hmm.
orature, and
Mm-hmm.
and include it in maybe the curriculum, in the fabric of our society? I mean, we have it already, but I'm saying to use it now as a cohesive device moving forward to keep us united. How do we do that?
No, but the thing about it first is there needs to be the anthologizing of these wise sayings. There needs to be the anthologizing of these wise sayings. I know, for instance, you were earlier on. You talked about A. Doris Banks Henrys. She
Yes.
was very good at that. She had Proverbs of Liberia, and so the idea of how do we use them as a unifying force. First of all, the repetition of these, the quoting of these every now and then establishes the point that we are together. In other words, when I say a proverb that you are familiar with,
Yes.
that anybody from Liberia, for instance, you talk about chicken where you were talking about softly will catch monkey. This, if you were somewhere and someone said that and you're Liberian, right away you will say, "That's my man," or "That's my
Yes.
lady," and what have you. The same thing about Liberian English. Liberian English, as soon as someone gets into Liberian English, someone who is around there will pick that up and say, "No, that guy, if he is not from Liberia or if she is not from Liberia, then something else has gone wrong. Maybe that person might have lived there for a while, or maybe that person has a friend." So the the voicing of these is one way of identification. The idea that I am from this place and I'm saying this, that begins the initial connection with you. And then other things can fall into place.
So do you think that in the curriculum, like for example, they teach what is it called, religious and moral
Mm-hmm.
course. There's a religious and moral course in the curriculum,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I always say it's too heavily centered on religion.
Mm-hmm.
They talk about, oh, the tithe and offering, why you should tithe. They talk
But
about,
who would talk about that?
oh, in a religious curriculum, they have that. In
Uh-huh.
fact, the research paper that you're going to do is about the importance of tithing. But in the moral aspect, you know, they talk a lot about, oh, you know, they talk a lot about other things, but I'm thinking that, you know, they could put some of these things in. They could put some of these proverbs and things in, you know, I mean, and explain it to the kids so they know. I mean, the little kids. And I've just been reminded that we need to take just a 30-second break. So we will continue our discussion after the 30-second. Anthony, we're ready to take the break whenever you are. Okay, we are back. So how do we I mean, for adults, we know these things. But I'm saying, how do we include this in the curriculum for our young people?
Well, as I started saying before we went on commercial break, uh, to teach something, you must establish its existence.
Yes. Okay.
To teach something, you must establish its existence. So, in the case of the folklore of Liberia, I know at some point they normally teach folklore, but it rests with us writers. It rests with us researchers. It rests with us textbook writers to be able to a kind of categorize these concepts. We should be able to write books categorizing these concepts. And even when it comes to folklore, as we were saying, we should be able to classify those proverbs that relate to morality, to talk about moral judgment and all that kind of thing. For instance, when I said something about words are like palm kernel shells, they don't rot. That could be one of those within the philosophical context. In other words, it's got to do with human relationship. It's got to do with social skills. What do you say to people? Why do you say such things to the people? And why do you make certain people feel the way they feel when, in fact, if those words were turned to you, you will not be able to, you will not be happy. So if we can first group all these wise sayings, all these parables and what have you, and have volumes of textbooks, so that as we move from one grade level to the other, and even all the way to college level, people will learn to understand that these things are not for mere entertainment.
Yes. Yes.
You see, literature, what it does is that it provides conversation about life. And if we need to have good conversation about life, then we have to be able to teach those things that bring them about. That is where folklore will become very much important. We collate them, we write them, we collate them, and then we are the ones now to kind of not sell them really, but make them available to the wider public. And in that process, we will be offering something that people need to think about. Let us again keep in mind that literature speaks to the human mind and the human heart. That is the role of literature. To a large extent, it speaks to the human mind and the human heart. And it is very much important because it is from the human mind and the human heart that passion develops. emotion develops, and after emotion, there is action. So if we have literature that will speak to the mind and the heart of everyone, then definitely there is another level, which is that these people will develop passion. These people will have the emotion to be able to relate something important to the wider public.
So when someone is helping you to watch your back, watch your own stomach. You know one that I have not heard
Mm,
anywhere else is John Palmer waits on John Rice.
mm.
I think that is very Liberian.
Yes, it's
That one.
Liberian. Yes, because
Yeah.
we call this palm butter. Ghanaians call it palm soup.
Okay.
So when you hear
Okay.
about palm butter, I will almost bet everything that it is the Liberian, lingua to say palm
Yeah.
butter. Yes, palm butter with John Rice.
So what I'm saying is, for example,
Mm,
would it be difficult if the schools, let's say fifth grade,
mhm,
to say to them, uh, here's a story of spider, why
mhm,
spider has a small waist.
mhm,
Now you explain to me in your own life
mhm,
or in the life of the country or whatever why
mhm,
greed is not good. Do you
mhm.
see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then the child is able to think
Mhm,
and say, yeah, like spider,
mhm,
greed is not good because you get caught,
mhm,
something like that. It's that the parables and the proverbs and the folk tales, well, folklore becomes a catalyst for thinking about morality in the community.
mhm.
I mean, I
Things
mean,
about life as such.
yeah, but I mean, for the little kids, I'm
Okay.
thinking that I'm trying to see how we can put it in the curriculum, even if it's not an anthology, how we can say, just how they say in the Bible, I mean, in a religious tree, they say, oh, here's a story of the Good Samaritan. What does it
Mhm,
mean?
mhm,
Right? So you say, oh, here's a story of spider. Now you explain
mhm.
why greed is not good. Something like that that would be able to create a unifying, I guess.
Of course, for every textbook that is written or something of that sort, there's often a time for holding workshops
Yes.
to kind of lay out lessons. Let the teachers who eventually will teach these things, do a hands-on type of training of these people. So actually, what you are saying it has its value. Uh,
Yes.
if you have these stories, how do you teach them? The lesson plans and all those things will get into the picture. I don't know now, but in the past, I know folk tales, and in fact, the whole idea, the concept of folklore, was often taught at the elementary school level. So I don't know what they. It's a shame though. Probably I have to kind of dig a little deeper to kind
And
of.
maybe yes, we
Do
don't
you,
know.
probably we need to get a copy of the national curriculum, the Liberian national curriculum, and be able to see where traditional literature or local cultural literature, where it fits and all that, because that's part of what one would call heritage literature and all that. So it's important for us to kind of uh, look up, pursue that question, and that is important about this forum as well, because my own thinking is that whenever we have our interaction here, I don't want it to stop here. I want the conversation to continue beyond what we are doing here, so that eventually something good in terms of maybe printed materials will come out of what we are doing here.
And sometimes it's good, like Shakespeare, how Shakespeare used to include folklore, that
Mhm.
we could say, like I think Wilson Sangawolo in Why Nobody Knows When He Will Die.
The mu-
As you're writing your book, you're
your
writing your
mic.
novel,
They say
huh?
your mic something. This thing is often going off by itself. You got a mic?
No, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, so I don't know what they mean.
I think maybe there's an echo or something.
Yes.
But
Yes, go
but
ahead.
you know, as you're writing novels and things, you know, you can include these things. You can include short stories. You can, I mean, short story. You can include myth and legends. You know, you can
Mhm.
include parables, like
In, in fact,
biting.
Sanka often did that much of the time. If you read,
Yes,
if you do uh, African poetry and drama or do African novel, there are times that you people talk about the sources of the sources that the African writer uses, the sources that the African poet uses in writing the novels, in writing the poems, and all that kind of, in writing plays. You know, Wole Soyinka and all those people. He has invested more into Yoruba culture and what have you, just as Chinua Achebe has invested more into to
the Igbo.
Igbo culture and what have you, and it's just all across the wider spectrum. Yes, uh, others use the Bible, which actually, when you say these, people get annoyed, but the Bible has a bit of mythology in it.
Yeah,
you
people
know,
get it.
all that.
People
So
get it. Yeah.
even the Quran, these even the Bhagavad Gita of
Yeah.
Buddhism and all that. Yes, yeah, Hinduism and
But
Hindu.
Prof, I was thinking when I was looking at legends and tall tales.
Mhm.
Do we have because they say sometimes tall tales could be like a historical figure, but we kind of like exaggerate their prowess. Do we
Yeah,
have tall
it's
tales in your area?
the thing about it, talking about tall tales and what have you. It's sometimes it gets to a point I can often smile. Sometimes some writers really want to distinguish themselves by bringing certain phraseologies to whatever they are saying, when actually it is a concept that you and I know. So legend, as you're talking about tall tale, legend is actually a tall tale. You know,
Yeah.
yes. And as I was saying, the Sanghaulo took much interest in Pele legends and all that. So yes, there are people who want to talk about things like that. My book, from which some of the proverbs that we were talking about, my proverbs came from, which is just like yesterday. It's a biography of the Sasan community in the 1960s, and it has something close to a legend about a man who was born to an older couple and grew up to fight a number of wars and brought victories to his people. And then, of course, through it's more like Samson's story. It was a lady who came from somewhere else, and this fellow had a secret. Nothing will kill him except seven seeds, seven special seeds. And it was the secret that he told to this woman who had come to be his wife. And it was through that he finally died. Your women. Sorry,
And, and,
sorry.
and some of the folklore, some of the tall tales and the
Yeah.
legends and the myth, they come from, like you say, from the Bible and things. But that's Samson. That's
Mhm,
Samson, and
mhm,
right,
mhm,
told
mhm.
his wife not
Yeah.
to cut his hair, and she cut his hair. Then he
Yes,
became
and
very weak, and of course he died. So most
yes.
of them have biblical roots and things like that.
Well,
Yeah,
yes, and again, let's keep in mind that Bible is Hebrew literature. You see, the Bible is Hebrew literature, and so the myths and legends that may be found in there may not totally be found in other places as well.
Yeah, and you and I were talking earlier about the Hebrew culture, and we found out that when the youngest, when they have like a family gathering,
mm,
the youngest in the family, I mean the one who can speak, not the baby, but the younger
mm,
kids, that the youngest person, they would ask 4 questions
mm,
about the culture, and
mm,
then the people explain to them. I think that's a very good way
mm,
of teaching the culture.
mm,
Like they could say, how did dad get his name? Or how did
mm,
our family get their name? And
mm,
things like that. And that
mm.
way you hand it down. You start to
Oh, yeah.
explain
From one,
things, you know?
yeah, from one generation
Yeah.
to the other. Now,
You know, I mean,
I think that is true in if not all families, then in most families, because I know very well. Growing up, I had my grand uncles and grand aunts around, and they every now and then, the more expressive you were, the more curious you were, the more you were able to get a lot of those stories that pertain to your family and even to the community. That's
yeah. And
again,
even,
that's where folklore happened to play a very important part, because when a folk tale was told or a myth was told and that sort of a thing, at some point you as a young person, you became very curious and you asked questions. There were some who were able to kind of explain uh, the answers to the questions you posed.
yeah. Prof, this is just an aside, but one of the
Hmm.
things that really made me think, like this thing that we say in Liberia, dress. When you want somebody to move aside, you say dress. What does that mean? Dress. Is it from the army? I mean, where is it from?
Yes, the thing about a language, it doesn't have to be English alone. It can even be Kru, Grip, and what have you. One thing about language is that the more people have traveled and all that, or the more people intermingle with other people, the richer they tend to make the language, which becomes maybe the lingua franca of the people. So it is possible, like this, people were engaged in Malaysia drill. People
Okay,
were
okay,
engaged in Malaysia drill. Dress right, dress right, dress.
okay.
All right. So that again, in its mutated form, it became part of our the Liberian English that we use.
Yeah,
Yes.
I had a friend here from Kenya. I was moving one time and she asked me if I was done moving. And I said
Mhm.
to her, oh, yeah, I'm done. I said, the things that remain are just these nyama nyama things. And she said, I didn't know you speak Swahili. And I
Oh,
said, what do you mean? And she said, nyama nyama. It means small, small things. But
wow.
it means like when you go to the meat store, right?
Hmm.
When they chop the meat,
Hmm.
those little pieces of meat that remain,
Yeah.
that's
Uh-huh.
the nyama nyama.
Nyama.
But in Nigeria, it's me small, small things. And that was
Uh-huh.
really interesting to know that,
Uh-huh.
yeah, that
Now,
somebody
now,
brought that.
now you can you were talking about how do these things bring unity. Identity is unity. You see,
Yes,
identity is unity. So
yes,
the idea that at some point you are saying, I say, oh, do you say that too? Oh, yes, we say. And then that even leads to what? It can become an icebreaker as far as conversation is concerned.
yes,
You can, from that point, get into so many other things, cultural things that kind of, by the time you know what's happening, you've explained certain things, and that will kind of bring both of you together. And that's important too. That's part of what language does. Stories
yeah,
and all those.
yeah. Last words, Prof.
Oh, eh, we're done already. This is
We could talk some more if you want.
oh, okay. Well, my last word.
Do you have something else to add before your last words?
No, what I wanted to say.
Let's not say last words. Concluding statements.
What I wanted to make us realize as we wind down this session is that we will continue to kind of replay that, which is literature is important to national development.
Yes.
It has so many facets. As we saw this evening, it has so many facets within the context of language. And that language speaks to the human mind. That language speaks to the human heart. The mind is where the thought is. The heart is where the emotion, the passion is. As you hear, so you absorb. When you absorb, you reflect. When you reflect, you want at some point in time to take action. So much of what we intend to do is to feed that mind, feed that heart with something that hopefully will generate something good that will drive positive action, that will drive constructive action in society. So from this point onwards, we need to keep in mind that folklore is a foundation of human creativity. It is a reservoir of wisdom. It is a reservoir of philosophy, a better way of life. And if you have the opportunity to be able to a kind of support the development of such literature, then you are contributing to the progress of society. And this is a challenge for a lot of us as we move on.
Thank you, Prof. I would like to thank you all for spending your Friday evening with us. Next week, we will be having our own author and writer, Dr. Patricia Jabe Wesley.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yes, and we're going to listen to her as she talk about poetry, writing, and what she's been doing in the meantime. And as I said, Dr. Kim Moses Nangbe and Dr. Patricia Jabe Wesley, both of them were my professors. So I'm just a student learning. That's all I'm doing.
You've grown already, Jackie. You've grown. You've grown.
Yeah, Sis Francis said you're picking first with her. So no, I said Sis Francis said you're picking first with her. She's going to finish the book.
Yes.
Identity. So as we prepare for next week, we want to say thank you. And as I said, this is a journey. We're not finished yet. We started with the different phases. We talked about the Liberian identity. We talked about what makes us Liberian. We talked about a search for self. We talk about reformation, renewal, regeneration, reclaiming, and we will still continue this story and this journey. So we ask you to join us next week, Friday, and to listen to Prof. Jabe Wesley, and to continue joining us, and please, tell somebody else about the show, so they too can listen. Thank you, and keep sending your folk tales, your proverbs, and let us unite around a common identity, because as they say, and this show always ends with it. And Prof, I hope you have a restful weekend. We are all Liberians. You go up, you come down. We are all Liberians.
Yes.
You go sideways, we're all Liberians.
Yes.
So thank you very much. And we look forward to you joining us again next Friday.
We are Liberian. Liberia is our home. Liberian people.